Hello, I'm Vicki, along with my daughters Jasmine, Cecilia, and Hannah, here at our summer kitchen. Welcome to Homestead Blessings.
Canning is one of the most satisfying homestead chores.
Seeing the colorful jars lined up on the pantry shelves and knowing that the family will enjoy the garden's harvest all winter long is well worth the effort.
So tie on your aprons and let's start canning.
Tomatoes are the first things I learned to can, and we're going to water bath today, which is a wonderful method to can tomatoes and other high acid foods like fruits and other high acid vegetables. This is a wonderful, easy process, and we've already started our tomatoes by pureeing them in a blender. So Jasmine, you want to tell us about all this from here?
Sure, we have, what you need to get started water bath canning is you need a canner or a pot to put your cans in to water bath. You'll also need a rack to put in the bottom, to cover the bottom, to hold the jars up off the bottom of the canner. And then you'll need some clean jars. For water bathing, you can use mayonnaise jars, recycled jars. Today we're using canning jars because they're good and strong and we like them. I think Mom has the lids.
And what is really a blessing, here's our little lids, and this is so wonderful. It's called a wand. And these little wands, you know, when you're warming up your lids, because you want to get your lids nice and hot to make sure the new lids with a nice seal. And I'm going to heat the lids in this pot here. This little wand is so nice because it has a magnet, and I can pull the lids out without getting
Burned.
Yeah, right. And isn't that nice? They call them wands. I love it. Okay.
And you'll also need rings, canning rings, to go on top of the lid. So you need to have all this ready. And then Cecilia, tell us about how we prepared our tomatoes.
Okay, what we did is we just took our tomatoes, our fresh raw tomatoes, and we cut them in quarters and we cut out the middles and cored them. And then we threw them in our blender and turned it on for just so many seconds, just so it's a nice pureed liquid here. And that's all you have to do to prepare them. You put them in your pot, and that's about it on the tomatoes, preparing them.
You can use this tomato puree in soups, stews, chili, just about anything. And this is the easy, fast way. You can do your tomatoes whole, but today we're showing the example of puree tomatoes.
What about ketchup?
Oh yeah, you can cook it down, make a sauce.
Oh, that's what I love, pizza sauce and spaghetti sauce. And it can be the same thing, and oh, it's wonderful. And just open that jar. And that's another thing I love about this. In the winter, we can just, or unexpected guests come by, we can just open a jar and we have pizza sauce or tomato sauce or what else? Ketchup. It's a blessing.
You can use it for a base for salsa too, and it works really well like that.
All right, we have washed our canning jars. These are Mason or ball canning jars that we're using. When you're water bathing, which is what we're fixing to show you how to do, you can use recycled mayonnaise jars, but today we're just going to use regular canning jars. And we wash them very well in hot water and soap and rinse them. And then with our jars, since we don't have electricity, we put our jars in our gas propane oven and at a very low temperature.
Like 150.
Like 150 to keep them actually hot. That sterilizes your jars. Now, if you don't have a propane stove or oven, you can keep them in very, very hot water until you're ready to fill them up and see.
Dishwasher is nice, you know, on the warm setting. Keep them hot. You want to keep them hot because we're going to put hot food in there.
Right.
Okay, and we've also washed them very well and checked for any nicks right around the rim. If you have a nick here, it won't seal properly, so you want to check for any little cracks or nicks in your jar.
One thing I like to do is right before we can, I like to go over the jar one more time with a little bit of water there and make sure there's no nicks. Not just nicks, we don't want any kind of particles of anything else right there because we want a perfect seal.
Okay, let's put them in the oven. Hannah, you can help do that.
Okay, we just put our regular canning lids here in this pot of water, and I'm going to set it on the stove and turn it on, and we'll just let it come to a boil. Or do we boil it for about simmer it for about what, 2 to 5 minutes, something like that.
And keep them hot.
And you keep them hot, so you keep them in your hot water, you know, till you're ready to put your tomato juice in your jar.
Okay, we need a funnel to start filling the jars. If Hannah, you want to?
Yeah, funnel. I have some funnels up here.
Oh, this is looking nice. We're gonna need a ladle.
We have our tomatoes heating so that it'll be nice and hot while we put them in the jar. And so we have our hot tomatoes in our hot jars. And then we have our water bather here already filled with water, about halfway, because as we put the full jars in, you know, the water level's going to rise. So we have it heating here, so it's nice and hot, so everything's hot. And also another thing about your canner is you want a pot or a kettle that you have enough head space. You want 2 inches of water above your jars once you put them in here. And then you want enough room for it to boil. So keep that in mind when you're finding your canning kettle.
Most canners, don't they hold 7 jars?
Yes. You want something that holds at least 5 to 7 jars while you're
Right.
doing all this stuff. You want to be able to can, you know, several at one time.
Right. But our jars are ready.
Probably.
Now we just take 1 jar out at a time so the other ones can stay hot. And we put our funnel there.
We need our handy dandy. Oh, that looks nice.
And just start ladling the tomato juice and puree right into the jar here. Now you want to leave a 1/2 inch headspace. That's right.
And
In your
headspace
jar.
is the space between the food and the top of the lid. That's what headspace
I got
means.
my jar just a little full.
Yeah, and then Mom's going to have to wipe that off really good. And explain
Right.
that again, Mom, about why you want to.
Well, there's several reasons. You know, to make sure it makes a good seal. You want to make sure you have all the food away. And
Right.
I always go again on top.
Because if there's
put my
any
glasses
food
on.
particles right here on the rim, then the lid and the seal might not seal because that will keep, you know, air. It'll get air in there and stuff, and it'll keep the seal from working.
So I like to really make sure that we get that very nice and clean. It's not too hard. I just dip my little rag down in there while I've got that hot water going, and I just make sure.
Right, that's
And
pretty good.
usually I go around one more
I think
time.
our lids, they've come to a boil, so
Yeah.
they should be hot enough now,
Okay,
right?
you need the wand, right?
I have the one.
All right.
Okay. And what we're going to do now is get the lids out, and sometimes a couple of them will come out at one time. That's okay. Just while it's nice and hot and clean. And remember, as Mom has said, to keep this nice and clean, you set the lid on there, and we need a ring. Where's our rings at? Right here. This part's called the ring, and you take it and just screw it on really tight, like that. And then we're ready to set it in the water, right?
Yep.
All right. And then you put it in where the water bath's going to be. It's that simple.
And when you're placing your jars in the canner, you don't want them packed in here. You want enough room so that they're not really touching. They're just,
Right.
I mean, they can be close, but you don't want them smushed in
Now,
there.
it doesn't hurt if they touch, right?
No,
Just
not
you
a
don't
little
want them
bit.
like crowded in there, packed in
put
there
the
too
lid on?
tight.
Yep.
All right.
It is a blessing to be able to, when you see the beautiful tomatoes on the vine and you've taken care of them and you pick them, sure is nice to put them in a jar and have them a little longer,
It is, and it's
all the
even
way
more
into the
fun
winter.
to be able to eat them.
Woo, yes. Wonderful.
This is almost perfect.
All right.
Almost 7 quarts.
Grow your own tomatoes and do this, you're saving a lot. I think a half a bushel goes anywhere $20-something or whatever. So if you grow your own tomatoes, this is a real blessing.
All right, this is our last jar, isn't it?
Yay.
Sure
that
is.
ring on. All right.
So we're going to put our last jar in the canner. And it's hot, and we've got probably a 1/4 inch, so I think we're going to add a little more hot water, because remember we want 1 inch to 2 inches of water over the tops of the lids. Yeah, and this is hot. This is a nifty little jar lifter when your jars start getting hot.
Right, because you don't want to touch them. It's like, ouch, you wouldn't want to drop one. So this works really well just to lift the jars and put them in the hot water. And lift them out of the hot water too.
Yeah. Okay, we've got our 2 inches of water over the tops of the jars of the water bather. Our burner is on, so this is still heating. We're going to put a lid on it, and what we want to do is we want to bring this to a boil. And once it begins to boil, you can monitor the temperature, because you don't want it like over boiling. You just want a steady boil. That's when you begin timing. That's called water bathing, and you want to let it boil for around 45 minutes for tomatoes. And once 45 minutes is over, you turn it off, and then you can get your jars out with the jar lifter. Okay, our water bather has been boiling for 45 minutes now. It's time to take the jars out. And Hannah, tell us how you do that.
All right, I'm going to get our handy little jar lifter like I had before, and we're going to just carefully lift these out because they're really hot. Now you're going to want to be really careful when you're using jars like this because they're going to be hot. This is not something you'd want, like, you know, little children to do, because you want to be careful with it. People, you know, you can get burned, but if you stay careful, everything should turn out just fine.
And tell them how you're placing those, Hannah, not too close together.
Right, because of the heat from the jars, you know, we kind of given some space between them. Because what you're going to do is you're going to let these sit for about 16 hours, because that gives time to let them seal. And if you disturb them, it will disturb the seal, and you might, you know, they might not seal. So we're going to let them set for about 16 hours, and then after that, you can let me set this down.
Test them, right?
Yeah, this is an already cooled off jar. It's already set for 16 hours. So what you can do is you can take off the ring, because you really don't need that on there. Just store it somewhere till next time. And you can test by pressing there, and if it makes a little popping sound, then they didn't seal, and you don't need to eat that. You need to get rid of that. And but if it stays indented there on the top and stays down when you press it, then it should be great.
Well, now, actually, Hannah, after you just can it, if it hasn't sealed, you could put it in the refrigerator and you can eat it. It's still good.
That's true. That's true.
6 months later.
Right. Sometimes you can even re-water bath it, like put it back in the water bather if you have several that didn't seal. Check your jar, though, you know, in case there's any cracks or anything. But if you did everything right, they should seal just fine.
Right.
What's so nice about this water bath method is that all your fruits are usually high acid. You can do peaches this way. You could do blueberries this way. And look, aren't those beautiful? These are going to be wonderful.
You can do strawberries too, right?
Strawberries,
Apples.
yes. Apples. A lot of your fruit, I believe most of them, right, are high acid. So just about 45 minutes of boiling, you know, in your water bath, you've got a nice can, and you can have this on your shelves for at least about a year, which is a blessing.
Another wonderful thing about canning your own food is you know what's gone into these jars. There's no preservatives, so it's healthy, and it also saves money.
And that's how easy and simple it is to do water bath canning. We hope you all have fun.
Well, there was green beans in the garden, and now they're right here, and pretty soon we're going to put them on those shelves.
We're going to pressure can the green beans. Since they're a low acid food, we can't water bath them, so we need a pressure canner, and this is different from a pressure cooker. So we have our pressure canners here. There's usually 2 types. We like the ones with the metal to metal seal. They just fit right on there, snug. They also have these with the rubber seals, but you want to make sure that this is not dry rotted, that it's pretty new, and you wet this before you put the lid on. So you need your pressure canner. You need, of course, your vegetables, and then Mom, you can tell them about the clean jars. And
okay, we sterilize the jars in the oven. Good, clean, sterilized jar is real important. This is a quart-sized jar, and we love canning in quart-sized jars. That's just a perfect size, and if you're a beginner, this is a good size to start with, and they're easy to find.
And they're canning jars.
Yes, these are, yes, we want to use a canning jar. Sometimes you can use a mayonnaise jar and recycle other jars, but for this pressure canning, right, for the pressure canning, you want to use a good sturdy canning jar. Okay, so now what we have, we've got our jar and we've got the green beans, and now we want to have nice new lids, and you can buy these at most stores, even grocery stores. Your local grocery stores have them around the summertime. You can buy them in bulk, and other places you can probably go online and find some. But you want a nice new lid with a nice rubber seal there, and then you separate it out. Thank you, Hannah. And then you would make sure, once again, this is how we would do it. And then you have these, and we call these rings. And so you just put that ring on there. After, you'll see how we do it. We'll just put that on there, and we'll make sure we'll have, that's our jar, our lids, and our rings. We'll make sure that we have a funnel handy. That's a nice canning funnel. Just fits right down in that quart jar, and we're able to fill our green beans in our jar. And sometimes you might want a little wooden spoon or something, pack it down in there. You might want some salt, and I think that is a teaspoon of salt to go in there.
When we're canning green beans, we're gonna fill the jar with green beans, and then we want to have some hot water on the stove to fill the rest of the jar. So we'll have green beans and water in there. So we have some water heating on the stove, and Hannah, why don't you turn on our lids? We'll need to get our canning lids hot so that they're ready to put on. And let's start snapping these beans. Y'all snap some more beans.
Now, snapping beans can be a real blessing, because you get a lot of visiting done when you snap your beans, right?
Yeah, you can. It's very easy to snap beans. After you wash them, of course, you just snap off each end. And then you usually can just snap them right in half. You don't have to do them in any more pieces than that. And I mean, this is all you have to do to prepare the green bean to be put in the jars. It's very easy.
This is a nice summertime thing to do on the porch, isn't it? On the porch swing, yeah.
What's nice about canning green beans is the whole family can be involved in this. I mean, the little ones can snap the beans, the big brothers and dad can help grow them.
Amen.
And mom and sisters can can them. That's great.
Yeah.
All right. I think we have enough snap. Let's, Hannah, did you bring our jars over?
Yes, these are the clean jars. I just brought them out of the oven. It helps keep them sterilized. And also when you go to put them in the canner, they're already hot, so they won't break, from the shock of the hot water. And so you want those warm. They're not too hot, but they're nice and warm. So I think we can start filling these up.
What's nice is once you've gotten your jars hot, the glass is a natural insulator, so it'll keep them hot.
We also have the salt. What you're going to want to do is put a teaspoon of the salt in each jar, and you can either put it in the bottom of the jar first, or since she already started, I'm going to put it on top of these green beans. It doesn't matter. The salt's just for taste.
And you don't want to pack these in too hard, because we're going to pour boiling water over these, and so that'll fill the jar up nice. So just, fill them up. You can push down a little bit, but you don't want to squeeze in too many, because they won't can right.
Headspace, right?
Yeah, well actually, see, these are raw green beans, so they're going to shrink down.
Right.
So you don't really have to worry as much about headspace. I mean, you want your lid to fit on.
Yes.
So that's about.
I like to take another little saucepan and heat my lids in a little saucepan, and then I'll go over there and do that.
I can start putting these in.
So 7 quarts fit in a canner, so we're doing 7 quarts at a time. See, how many do we have now? This is a fast job.
I think actually we have 7 now, don't we?
Okay, I'm going to bring over a kettle of boiling water. Just go ahead and bring the lids over. Okay, now here's our kettle of boiling water. And what we're going to do, these jars are hot, the water's hot, so nothing's going to break. We're going to just fill these up. And we're going to leave a little bit of headspace. And headspace is the space between the top of the water level or vegetable level and the lid. So we're leaving about 1 inch of headspace, because these green beans have some water in them too, so they'll come out. So maybe we should we'll leave 1.5 inches to be safe. And then Mom's going to wipe the lids really good, and Mom, you can.
Yeah.
Oh, I just love this. You can get this many times at just a little grocery store in the food canning supply center or whatever, and this is called the wand. I do want to make sure that my rim has no salt particles and that sometimes I stick my finger down like that and go back around. So
Very
make sure
clean,
there's
don't
no
you?
nicks. Yes, very, very clean. So I get a real good seal there. That'll be a blessing. That's what we're going for.
Otherwise, if you don't have it clean enough, or if there's any cracks, then your jars won't seal, and you don't want that to happen.
Okay, so Hannah, you want to put the ring on for me? And these nice rings, there's another nice thing about the ring. Okay, is that you can use your rings again, but you want to make sure that you keep them after use. You want to make sure that you clean them and you dry them off real good so they won't become rusty, and that can happen. So we wash them and hang them back up on the hanger. I better get to going, huh? Okay.
Well, you can have some down here and we'll help.
Oh, great. Thank you. There you go.
Yeah, I'll get you a lid.
There you go.
And I think I'll carry the canner over so it's on the stove and ready to go.
And it's always good, even though I'm cleaning the rim, it's real good for whoever's got the jar at the time to look one more time and make sure that there's no nicks at the top of the rim and that there's no salt or greeny beanies. Okay, I like the wand. Let me use that wand again. There we go. And if I got one, sometimes they like to stick together. But this is going to be great.
Okay, now it's time to put our jars of green beans into the canner. Okay, with this pressure canner, we put 2 quarts of water in the bottom.
Make sure that you read the instructions to your canner.
Okay, we're just going to put the jars of green beans down in here.
Start loading them up in here.
Loading them up. We don't cram them in here. 7 fit nice and comfortably without smushing against each other and touching. So, and we're going to turn the pressure canner on so it'll be heating. I put it on high because it needs to get hot fast.
And it would be a real good idea to, like I said, read your instruction book and follow a lot of common sense safety.
All right, before we put the lid on, we want to make sure we grease the lid here and grease inside here. You can use any kind of oil or grease, it doesn't matter.
Want me to help a little bit?
Help
On one side.
Yeah, you put it on there and I'll do it on this.
Okay, great. Teamwork.
It doesn't have to be real greasy or anything, just so.
Now why do we do this?
It just helps it fit better.
Yeah,
helps it
and when you take it
seal.
off,
Yeah.
it doesn't stick, so, you know.
Okay, now it's time to put the lid on. And we're going to put it on nice and tight. And we're going to go from opposite sides so it's put on evenly. And Cece, you can help me. Let me just screw this down. Some canners are different, so just refer to your book again. Okay, get that side. Great.
All right.
Now, what we're going to do is we're going to, this is heating up and pressure is building, so remember to be careful. This is hot, and we're going to wait for the pressure to build up inside, and then steam is going to escape. And once you see the steam escaping, you'll see it, it's a big white cloud. You want to start timing it 10 minutes before you put our weighted gauge, jiggler, some people call it. So we'll let the steam escape, and then we're going to put this little guy on after 10 minutes. Okay, now for green beans, they're low acid food, so we're doing the pressure canner, and we can green beans at 10 pounds pressure. Okay, so after the steam has escaped for 10 minutes, we're going to put this weighted gauge on there so that this helps keep the pressure at 10 pounds. And this little thing is going to dance around every, few seconds or so. You don't want it going the whole time because that's, your canner's too hot. You can actually turn it down after this thing starts dancing, and that's when you want to time it. And what that's doing when it starts dancing is it's letting off pressure and keeping this at a certain temperature. We let this jiggle or dance around for 25 minutes for green beans. Now some recipes are different, but we're going to do 25 minutes. And then after that, it's done. You turn it off and then you remove your jars. Okay, our green beans have been in the canner for 25 minutes canning, and we've turned it off and let them cool down. The pressure has gone down, and we're going to first remove the little weighted gauge or jiggler, and then Cece's going to loosen up the lid here, and it's time to remove the jars of green beans. And be careful.
Definitely want to be careful lifting this, just like
Away from your face.
anything hot. You don't want to put your face right in it when you lift it off because it's going
Should I take
to be a
that?
little warm.
Ooh, they smell good.
They do.
Smell
I know. It
all.
smells like dinner cooking.
Oh, wow, it does smell good. All right, we're going to take them out of here with our handy jar lifter.
All right. They're beautiful.
Look at that.
Goodness.
Beautiful green beans.
And
Wow.
they're ready. There's no more steps. They're ready, right?
Right, you want to let them set over here where you put them. You want to let them stay there for 15 hours and before you move them or do anything with them. That just makes sure your seal works, and it's just better not to move them. And with vegetables, it's different on your pressure canning time. Green beans is 25 minutes. Corn is a little longer. Squash is a little different in time, and you'll just have to, look in your canning book and find out which vegetable, how long it takes. But the method is the same, of course.
The wonderful thing is about pressure canning is I can take this jar of green beans off the shelf, warm it up a little bit, and it's ready. I don't have to cook it all the way again. It's a blessing. And this is a wonderful, wonderful way to preserve your wonderful food, and I hope you enjoy pressure canning.
All right, another great way of preserving your food is pickling. You can pickle like almost anything. It's a wonderful thing. I love to make pickles. You can pickle eggs, you can pickle okra, you can pickle peppers, you can pick, of course, pickles. And today I'm going to show you how to pickle eggs. And you can probably apply this method to pickling most anything. You'll want to look up in your canning book if you want to pickle different things. Sometimes it varies for different things, but pretty much it's all the same for the same vegetables or whatever you want to use. So, Mom, why don't you open this jar and let's show them what we're going to do with these.
Oh.
These eggs I pickled already back in the wintertime. We had a lot of eggs, and so it's a great way of, if you have a whole bunch of extra eggs coming from your hen house, or you just want to somehow store eggs.
Yeah. And later on, sometimes in the winter, the chickens aren't laying. Well, you can pickle your eggs, and you have them in the winter. And I used to think, why would I want to eat a pickled egg?
Yeah, sometimes it sounds like
And I thought,
pickled egg.
And then I went to my friend's house, and she said this is what she does with her pickled eggs. She slices them up really pretty after she's pickled them, and they've been on the shelf. Oh, I guess you could slice them any old way you want. And then she puts them really nice on her salads. And you know what? It was wonderful. And I thought, that is a terrific idea. I never thought about it like that. Then we found out you can put pickled eggs in your tuna salad, right?
Oh, yeah.
You can probably
Potato
make
salad.
potato salad. It's wonderful in potato salad because you usually put a little vinegar in your potato salad anyway. So we just want to encourage you to pickle those eggs.
All right, what you do first is you want to boil your eggs, but a soft boil. You don't have to cook them very long because they're going to be water bathed in your jar, so that's cooking them more. So you soft boil your eggs. Then, of course, you want to peel them because you don't want to pickle eggs with shell on there. That wouldn't be very good.
You want me to help?
So, sure, Mom,
Okay.
why don't?
Okay.
And a great tip on peeling boiled eggs is if you use eggs that are a couple days old, 2-3 days old, not so fresh, they actually peel better and you don't get like mess up. If they're older eggs, the shells just come off a lot easier. That's a great tip to know because sometimes I get frustrated if I'm peeling my egg and my egg's falling all apart and stuff. So
How fast can you peel an egg? This is a really nice way, isn't it, to preserve there's sometimes in the real hot summer, the chickens are slow at laying too. I remember we had 15 eggs a day there for a while. We were like, pickled eggs, pickled eggs.
all right, so after you get your eggs peeled, I'm going to use a pint jar here to can in, because usually you're not going to need a quart jar of pickled eggs. You're not going to eat that many pickled eggs at one time, so a pint really works great. And I'm using a wide mouth jar. Now this is a little bit different, of course, than the regular jar. It is wider, which makes it a lot easier to put your eggs in. If you try to stuff eggs in that, you can do it, but it's a little bit harder.
You can pickle quart jars, can't you?
Yeah, of course, but for size, this is just like the perfect size for most pickles. So what I'm going to do is stuff these eggs in here, as you can see. Just kind of squeeze them in there any way you can. Let's see, how many eggs? That's about 5 eggs. 5 or 6 eggs per pint pretty much works. I don't know if I can fit, I think 5 is good in this one. And then over here, I'm going to go to my brine. Now, when you make pickles, all pickles have a vinegar brine. And vinegar is your main preservative. Vinegar and salt most of the time for your pickles. That's what makes them pickled. So for this pickled egg recipe is 1 quart of vinegar, 1 cup of water, and a ½ cup of salt. And you mix that together, put it in your pot, and you just bring it to a boil, nice and hot. It doesn't have to cook. It's just good, really hot. You want it, make sure the salt's good and dissolved in there and everything. So now we got our jar packed with eggs, and to each pint jar of eggs, I'm going to add a ½ teaspoon of crushed cayenne pepper. Now, this could be optional if you don't want cayenne pepper in your pickled eggs. It's okay. It really doesn't affect the taste so much. It's not like spicy or anything. And if you don't have crushed cayenne pepper, you could use a whole cayenne pepper or no cayenne pepper at all. It can be completely optional.
Kind of looks pretty, doesn't it?
Yes, it makes it look really pretty.
Yeah.
And I'm also going to add a ½ teaspoon of turmeric powder here. And that gives it a nice color, like a kind of yellowish color. It looks really pretty. And it kind of helps with the flavor too.
And turmeric's very healthy.
Pickled food is actually very healthy for you. Also, I'm going to add 1 clove of garlic. Now that definitely helps with the taste. It just makes it so yummy. And you don't need to add any salt or anything, because in your brine you have your salt already added. And you can use white vinegar, white distilled vinegar. That's what I use for this particular canning eggs. It'd be nice to use white vinegar because that way you can see your eggs. You can use apple cider. Apple cider vinegar is a little bit stronger. It's healthier. But it just depends on which kind of vinegar you like, I guess. So the next thing we're going to do, now that we've got all these ingredients in here, is add our brine. Okay. So I need a funnel.
I can get you a funnel right
all
there.
Right,
okay.
You can go ahead and pack one more jar for me. So what I do here is just start adding this hot vinegar over these eggs here. Like this. Now, of course, you remember, as with canning other things, you want to have your head space here, so you don't want to fill it completely full. Like that. Then you have your hot lids over here that have been boiled, and they're ready to go. Put them over here. And make sure our rim is nice and clean and there's no cracks. We're going to put our lid on. Put the ring. All right, let's put the ingredients in here. Here, Mom, you can put the clove of garlic in there.
Okay. You know, also, this makes like a nice little gift, too.
Oh, yeah, it is. It's really old-fashioned. Pickled eggs are very old-fashioned, and actually, I think they're pretty Southern. Yeah. I didn't hear about them for a while.
I just saw them in the store all the time and wondered, what would I do?
Actually, I think I went to a reenactment, a Civil War reenactment, and I saw them for sale in some little store there. And I thought, oh, that's so neat. All right, so we're going to add our vinegar.
Want me to hold that for you?
Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't figure out what was I going to do with pickled egg. I just couldn't imagine eating a whole pickled egg. Of course, now I think I could.
Some people really like them.
Oh, yeah, they're delicious.
Some people, just the thought of them. But the whole, you can pickle anything. Like we said, it's just the process of your vinegar and your salt and water is the brine. And then you have whatever you want to pickle.
You know what's so nice about thinking about making potato salad? Once again, if you want to make you've got company coming over and you wouldn't have to boil your eggs. You'd just be ready, right?
Oh,
just
yeah,
take the can out,
definitely.
take the jar out, chop them up and throw them in your potato salad and you've got it. Trying to save a little time.
Now you can do this exact same method I'm showing you to pickle with okra instead of eggs. You use the same vinegar brine, you use the same cayenne pepper and the garlic. You just wouldn't put turmeric in it, and you can make beautiful pickled okra too. All right, get those lids put on, put it in your water bath and let it boil for 10 minutes and take them out, let them cool down, and you've got pickled eggs.
Now for another favorite, blackberry jam. This is an easy recipe and it's so fun to put up and tasty too.
All right, we're using frozen blackberries here, but you can use fresh. Most of the time when you make jam, you can use fresh or frozen fruit. It doesn't make a difference really. So we have measured 7.5 cups of frozen blackberries here, and we're gonna put them in our stock pot over here on the stove.
We like to use a tall stock pot because sometimes as you cook your jam, it'll bubble up, and this helps prevent an overboil, so you have a little bit of room to work with, so it doesn't overflow in your pot. So, use a big enough pot to handle the berries plus some for boiling. Okay,
right.
So the fruits
got the berries in there. Now the next ingredient we're going to put in is your fruit pectin, which is a very important ingredient. And I'm adding to 7.5 cups of fruit, I'm adding 2 ounces of pectin, which is
usually a box.
1 box, yeah.
You can get these in any grocery store, or like we did, we bought some in bulk, so that's why we had to weigh it out. But 1 box to 7.5 cups of fruit should be great.
I'm just gonna sprinkle that in there, and I'm gonna turn it on high heat, because what we want to do is bring this to a boil. Now I need my spoon. Stir this. I love to use wooden spoons when I make jam. It's just a personal preference of mine, but I think they're very nice to cook with.
They are. Now, do we have this on high or is it
yes,
medium?
Yes, it's on high because I want it to come to a boil quickly. And right now, the frozen berries in here are it's kind of stiff in here, and you can still see the white pectin and stuff, but as it heats up, of course, the berries are going to melt and it's going to create juice and it's going to get very liquidy. And when it comes to a boil, we're going to add our 7.5 cups of sugar.
And we're using raw sugar. You can use white sugar. We like raw sugar. That's 6. And 7, and you said a half?
Yep. You want to do a cup of sugar to every cup of fruit.
Okay, I think
it's got lots of sugar in there.
Right. So what are we waiting on here?
What we're waiting on before we add the sugar into your berries here is for these berries to melt down and to come to a boil, which it really doesn't take very long.
While we're waiting, we've washed our jars. We like to use little jelly jars, so we have half-pint jelly jars, and we've cleaned them, checked for nicks, and we put them in the oven. That's kind of warm. We put them in the oven, or you can keep them in hot water. You want to keep them hot because we're going to put hot jam in there. So we've got our jars ready. We've got our lids, our new sealing lids, and they're in a pan of water. So when this kind of gets close, we'll turn that pan of water on so our lids are heating. And we have our little wand to get them out. So those are some of the things you want to have ready.
Also, while your berries are melting down and you've got your pectin stirring in, you don't have to stir it constantly right now at this point, but you do want to keep an eye on it and make sure nothing's sticking. That's a very important thing to do there. It's horrible if you have jam that starts burning.
Oh, yes. Well, what's worse is the overboiling. You just don't want it to overboil. One day I think the first time I made blueberry jam.
Oh, man.
I still have the cookbook. There's blueberries all over it. And it went over the wall and everything, so you definitely want to watch.
Yeah, I think a lot of people probably think that it's making jams is like this all day in the kitchen kind of thing, and slaving over the stove, but it's really actually very easy and fun to make. right, now our berries and our pectin are starting to come to a nice little bubbly boil here, and it's time to add the sugar.
All right, so we just kind of add it and stir at the same time.
Now the sugar is going to make it cook, hopefully, a little faster. That's a lot of sugar though. Wow.
It is. It'll be sweet.
Very sweet.
A nice sweet treat.
Yep. Now I'm going to stir this in very well.
We're going to let it boil for 2 minutes.
Just 2 minutes, that's all it needs to do. As it cools down, jam hardens, so you really don't want it to be very thick. All right, we've got it boiling here. We've had it boiling for the 2 minutes, and as you can see, it's a nice bubbly, frothy kind of boil. And it is ready to turn off and start putting in jars now. So we're gonna get our hot jars out of the oven here. And we'll need a ladle. As you can see, it's still, you know, kind of liquidy, but that's okay. As the jam cools down in the jar, it will harden and be more jam-like. Okay.
I'm going to put our lids on so they're ready and hot. There we go.
Jam can make a big mess, but once again, you want to make sure you just fill your jars up to you have a 1/2 inch headspace. Maybe you could put a little bit more in there.
We've got our rings, our canning rings. We need our canning rings. Okay.
Want to wipe that edge off?
Oh yes, we must wipe the edge off so we get a proper seal. So just take your little washcloth, dip it in some water, and just wipe that rim off so that there's no jelly or jam, whatever you're making here. It's nice and clean and you'll have a good seal. These have been simmering and they're hot now, so we're gonna put the hot lids on there. And then we'll have our, we'll put our water bather on because you'll need to water bath these for about 5 minutes. So when we fill all our jars, get the water bather out.
Ooh, this is a hot jar.
Hope that's okay.
All right.
Wipe the rim.
Now you can use this method for strawberry, blueberry, let's see what else, probably any kind of berry.
A mixed berry is
Mixed
very
berry
good.
jam.
Peach.
Peach jam. Of course there's different recipes for different stuff too, but this is your basic jam recipe.
Right. And jelly making is very similar. You just strain your berries, strain the seeds out.
Like if it's blackberries, you want to strain
Right.
the seed out.
So,
We put this in the water bath 5 minutes, and that's the sweet thing about jam. It is very easy and simple to make. Hope y'all have fun. One of the great things that's easy to grow and easy to can is cabbage. If you grow it in your garden, you usually have way more than you know what to do with. Or if you get it at the store, it's not that expensive, and there's a lot to a head of cabbage. We're going to show you how to make sauerkraut. First thing we're going to do is chop up our cabbage here. Now we use a hand grater, but you can use a food processor or whatever tool you see necessary that will work. Let's chop up this.
One of the greatest things about sauerkraut is not only is it easy to make, but it is incredibly healthy for you. It has acidophilus in it. It's good for the digestion. It is a good source of vitamin C. So it's so easy to make. I mean, it's just awesome. Awesome stuff. Tastes good too.
In the old days, when people weren't able to get fresh fruit in the wintertime, they put up sauerkraut, and it was one of their only fruit sources of vitamin C in the wintertime. So it's obviously very healthy for you. And most people eat sauerkraut with some kind of sausage or something in it. And that actually, sauerkraut helps you digest the meat that you eat with it. So it's just a great thing. I'm just grating this up here. You want it to be a nice, not too fine, but not too big, kind of like you would be making coleslaw, about that kind of texture. And we just hand grate it, but like I said, a food processor would work just as well, probably a lot faster. So let's just show them here.
Okay.
Now the thing about making sauerkraut is you actually do not cook it or process it or anything. It's all done raw. And the great thing that what makes it so healthy and actually sour is that it ferments. And it's a very good fermentation for you. What we have here is our nice grated up cabbage. And I can squeeze it and there's juice coming out. So you don't need to add water. You just have your cabbage here.
Actually,
and we just start adding salt to this.
You're gonna add enough salt pretty much to taste. I mean, you know, you keep adding it, you keep working it with your hands, because what you want to do is to make that juice, because you're not adding water to it at all. So we're just gonna keep adding salt.
And what the salt does,
working it.
the salt brings out the water that's in the cabbage. Believe it or not, cabbage is packed with water. All right, let's see what
You think that's
does.
good?
I bet that's good. Probably
Oh,
should
yeah.
taste it to find out. Why don't you taste it?
Okay, I'm gonna
See.
taste a little bit here.
You see, as you see, look at that juice.
Oh wow.
Look,
Yeah, that's great, and it tastes really good too.
just make it.
I think it has plenty of salt.
Oh yeah. So, you just make it nice and juicy. You know, chop it up here, squeeze it, squeeze all the water out until you got a nice bit of water in that bowl there. See?
Right, you can just see. Oh, that is great.
Look at
That's what
that.
it's supposed to look like. Yeah,
Just, 5 minutes ago it didn't have any water in it. It's amazing,
I
isn't
know. It's so once you start working it, you can just
All right.
feel how wet it gets.
I think that is ready to put in
Are you
the jar.
serious?
Yeah.
That was so easy.
Now, we're going to use these pint canning jars. They don't even have to be canning jars. You can use any kind of jar because you're not going to process this in a water bath or a pressure canner. And I'll tell you why in a minute. In the old days, people used to put them in these old-fashioned crocks. And they just pack that cabbage in there with the salt and put the lids on it. And as time passes, your cabbage ferments and it becomes sour and it makes sauerkraut. And you don't have to seal it. That's the great thing about it. All right, it's time for our funnel. We're going to pack it in the jars now. Let's get it in there.
Right.
Now you want to pack it actually pretty tight in your jar, right?
Yes, you do.
Because it will shrink down as it ferments and sours. And we'll get some of that
Actually,
juice
take
in
the
there.
funnel and go ahead and just.
It's amazing. It seems like you have so much cabbage, but once you start working it and stuff, it just
packs down.
yeah,
in there.
packs down. And
Okay, I think you can put some more in there.
see how nice and green it is? Well, as it becomes sauerkraut, it will actually
Okay.
turn kind of yellow off-white kind
Yeah,
of
it
color.
does. I think we've
The
got
color
a
of
little
sauerkraut.
much.
Now we want to leave, as you see here, at a good 1.5 inches or a good inch of headspace, because as sauerkraut ferments, it bubbles and it works itself up. So if you fill it up and then put your lid on, you're going to have leaky, fermented
Overflowing.
cabbage overflowing everywhere. So you want to leave a good amount of space there.
Okay, do we need some?
And we're
a
just
pan
going
of
to
water?
put a
So we want to clean that off really good. Once again, just like with canning, you want your rim to be very clean. So you clean that off really good. And it is important to have a good clean lid and a good clean ring. And you just twist it on really. You don't do it too tight.
You don't want to
do
do
you?
it too tight. but
Leave it
you
a little
don't want-
loose because it's going to work like we said. And it's going to.
Now,
You don't want that
we're
too
using
tight.
the pint-sized jars, but it just depends on how much you like sauerkraut or how much you want. You can use quart size. You can use any size jar. You can recycle jars. Like I said, you're not going to be processing this in any hot water. So,
You could probably use old pickle jars, couldn't you?
yeah, old
There we go.
pickle jars, and you can use the lids that go with them. Actually, screw-on lids or cap lids are really, really good for this kind of
Just go ahead and
sauerkraut
dump it.
making. Just put this in here. Put that on.
That looks like that fills that up, doesn't it?
Yep. Now, when you get done putting your lids on your sauerkraut, you want to put it in a cool, kind of dark place. And you might want to, when you set it on your shelves or wherever you put it on the floor, wherever you want to set it, you might want to put a towel underneath it, or some old newspaper would work great, because Even though you took the precaution of not filling it up too much, it still might, you know, as it ferments and leaks and stuff, it still might come out a little bit. Don't panic. It's okay. Just wipe off your jar before you're ready to use it.
Now that we've put the cabbage in jars, you have about 2 or 3 weeks of letting it sit on the shelf to make really good sauerkraut. That's when you've got the great taste. You can let it set for 1 to 2 years. I mean, it's not going to go bad. Another great thing is when you open it, you don't have to wait for that pop sound because these don't have to seal because they keep, right?
Right. Sauerkraut's great to have with sausage or with beans or any of your favorite food, really. That's how easy it is to make sauerkraut. Hope you all enjoy it with your next meal.
We get a lot of questions about canning, so here are a few tips that will help you during canning season.
Yeah, this is just something really simple that we thought about, and we saw some other friends do this, and they would have their rings just stacked on something like this, you know, stationary, right next to where they're going to be canning, or they may do something as simple as this. They take a wire. You can even use a bent coat hanger or something, and they take a wire and then they have their rings really handy so you can just whip them out when you need to put them on your jar, just like that. Just take it off, and then when you're through, this is sort of a tip within a tip, make sure you take your rings, wash them real good, and dry them very good so they don't rust up too much, you know. So after they're nice and dry, right, just go ahead and then you put them back on your wire like this, and hang it back up, and you've got that nice and handy.
That's great.
And yeah, it's really nice.
Another good tip is to tell if your jar is sealed very well. We're going to open this jar, and you'll listen very closely, and you'll hear a nice suction sound, and you know that this is sealed very good.
Whoa,
Wow, that was a pop too. And we just use a spoon to open it. Sometimes we actually use our fingernails. You can use a can opener, but a lot of times that puts a hole in your lid, and then you can't use it for storage. So we use a spoon, and that doesn't damage your lid. So listen for that sealed sound. Okay, after you've canned your vegetables and you can store them in a cool, dark place. You don't have to have the rings on them to store. A basement is good if it's dry. A root cellar.
Root cellar,
Yeah. Some people just store them in on their pantry shelf, but you want a, you know, dark place, so shut the doors.
Yeah, you want to keep them out of the light. That's kind of the idea of it. They should store there for quite a while.
Using them within a year is good, but they'll keep for several years. Another important thing to do is to label and date your jars. So put the date when you canned it, and if you have any special like no salt or this one is sweeter, you can put that too. Right on the jar before you store it.
Thank you for joining us today in our summer kitchen.
Canning season can be a wonderful time for families to share in the work and the wealth of their garden's bounty.
As you see, by following good directions, canning is a simple and safe process.
We hope you've been inspired to try this somewhat old-fashioned but effective way of preserving food.
We'll see you again next time here at Homestead Blessings.
Another wonderful thing about canning your own food is you know what's gone into these jars. There's no preservatives, and it's nice and healthy, and it saves a lot of money too.
So we hope you all have time.
Thank you for joining us today in our summer kitchen.
Canning season can be a wonderful time for families and friends to share in the,